Meteorologist Casey Cloud jumping back in here on this Saturday afternoon with a live weather update. We're now seeing the potential. It just came in here in the last couple seconds. Potential of considerable damage there now in north parts of Dougherty and especially Lee County in Georgia here. We had this severe thunderstorm warning come out as a base warning here about, let's say, about a little less than 10 minutes ago, but now we have some hail that could be up to 1.75 inches in diameter now in southern Lee County. This could be a damaging storm there in southern Lee County here, folks. Hail up to 1.75 inches in diameter here. They're on the south side of Leesburg, Roy, right when you're going up there, US 19 from Albany into Leesburg. There, you come out of Dougherty County and you're into Lee County, just a little ways up. You have this heavy rain and that hail really mixing on in there into towards some of these different neighborhoods here right now. So this could be pretty nasty, pretty volatile of a situation here right now as we give you guys the very latest updates. So again, we're just trying to keep you guys informed here. Just trying to see what's happening. I know it's not in our area, but there was a gust earlier around Panama City Beach there at a buoy just off the coast there. It looks like 57 miles an hour. So that gives you an idea here of the type of parameters we're dealing with in some of these spots when there's more favorable conditions here. And in this case, we have wind potential in here too. Now, this is really strengthened pretty rapidly, to be quite honest, here in southern Lee County. When you get folks inside and away from windows, if you're not already there, you have the lighting, you have golf ball size hail maybe right there in the worst parts of Lee County. So it's a pretty dangerous situation here, folks. Considerable damage possible there. We're talking about areas around Leesburg, Albany, Turner City there, Stocks, Forester, Palmyra, Century, Jordan Place, Starksville, Akery, over to Ward. It looks like Belima as well. So we have a very nasty storm here. This is a damaging storm, potentially maybe upwards of golf balls of hail being produced. This is a storm that could produce considerable damage. People and animals outside could, if not, will be injured. Expect hail damage to roofs, siding, and windows, as well as vehicles here, and expect damage to roofs, siding, and trees there. So, hail damage to roof, siding, windows, and vehicles, wind damage to roof, siding, and trees. Definitely a possibility. So, again, got to be very mindful here as we're looking at this, as we're tracking it here to south side of Leesburg and toward Lee County and Georgia. Again, we have to be on with this right now because of the nastiness with this storm. Yeah, the hail tracker really picks up how quickly this is strengthened. This is strengthened as it's been moving in a more populated area. So this is not what you want to see, obviously. It's a nasty situation because hail tracker wasn't really picking much up there as we were off toward the west there, around Southwestern. But now they've gotten into Lee County, and our system is showing hail could be up to 1.75 inches in diameter here as we go to the current scan of this. Yeah, this is not what you want to see there, right around US 19, and this is a little delayed. It's probably, honestly, again, crossed it now. As we see, this is a little bit more, within the last couple minutes. The other system has to analyze it and then put out the data for us here. It goes a little bit more in depth with things, but on this system, you can just see it right there. We need folks, you're in the path of this, to get into shelter immediately. Again, this is really rapidly intensified. I mean, we only had this warning out for 10 minutes. This is one of the nastier hail producers you'll see. I know we aren't as close on the radar as some storms, so maybe it's not as bad as it looks, but this got issued at 4:28, and now at 4:39, it looks like it could be producing considerable damage here in toward parts of Lee County. It's an urgent weather situation right now. The wind potential isn't there as much, but if there's any wind with this, that's getting up on the side of 40, 50 miles an hour, even if it's not severe, it could kind of drive this hail there, which is a bigger threat, could kind of drive this into, maybe damaging some windows even as you start to get big enough in the size with the hail to do that. So this is not just your typical quarter-size hail storm. This is now one that could produce considerable damage in theory here in toward Lee County. It's not, something we've confirmed yet through ground truth, but this is nasty stuff here. This is, not what you want to see. A very quick uptick here in the Doppler algorithms in toward Lee County, Georgia. I'm switching some things around here. I'm going to take off our warning information for now. We're going to zoom back down to the south here. A lot of this is a lot more muddy, which, because the storms aren't, discrete like that, be a lot harder for things to be severe, but nasty weather, some lighting near Tallahassee, a little bit of that. Now they're playing a basketball game there. FSU winning here, right before halftime against Duke. And, hopefully folks won't be leaving that, anytime soon because it's such a great game. But even when they are leaving, maybe in an hour and a half or something, the Storms will be, doing, some maybe damage, in a very isolated nature, but more so it's just a heavy rain here that we have to worry about in terms of, it's dark, maybe a lightning strike could do some damage too, other than just the wind damage potential that you generally can get with some of this. So again, we're just having to be very mindful here of the scenario up into Georgia, though. As I switch back to this, the wind potential isn't all that impressive, but the hail potential, you can even see it here in some of these values. I know angles make it kind of tricky, but there's a hail signature here that we don't like to see on our algorithms and the correlation coefficient. That even looks worse from the Moody radar. Now that's 7,500 feet up. Tallahassee radar is about 8,000 feet up. I know I'm zooming a lot, but it's just to help me out figure out how bad this could be. A little less, almost 7,000 feet up from Fort Rutgers / Fort Nova Seal. We go to the Robbins radar, and we look about 7,000 feet up, and that looks bad in terms of that hail. That's about the hail size, and if not just the size, it's about maybe, sometimes you can get just a bunch of hail, and it's not as big as it looks like it could be reaching to on radar. So you could have a bunch of hail that's more like an inch, but it's just so much it's going to cause enhanced problems versus your normal inside hail producers. So that's something to be very mindful of, very cognizant of. Let me go ahead and see if I can have another source here behind the scenes. I want to see if we have any reports coming in on another source here right now. I'm going to kind of pull that on up so I get an idea of what's going on here this afternoon. I want to get an idea of the situation here from some of those MPing reports. So I haven't pulled this up in a while. I don't see anything so far. Just curious, anybody that has some type of reporting out there can send that on in. If they have like certain types of apps like Radar Scope, there's different ways to send that information in, or just directly to National Weather Service in Tallahassee as well. So one of those is on the ground in terms of the hail production here and how big it is. I'm sure there's some hail in here. It's just we want to know how big it is because how damaging it is. This is something that we really got to worry about in Worth County. I know, as we look off toward the east, we monitor the situation very closely. We monitor this scenario very carefully here and keep you guys informed. I know Worth County in football won the state title last month, and that was a great accomplishment for them there as we look at parts of our area. But, in these isolated spots right now, we could have some hail issues coming your way over the next little bit. So, just trying to give you guys the very latest here. Trying to keep you guys informed. Let's see if there's any hail reports. This looks pretty nasty on the radar. This is really upticked. A concerning situation. Again, maybe golf ball size hail there. Don't have any reports that I've seen so far. Let me check another source here. Just trying to give you guys the very latest. Okay, there are some social media reports now, maybe, of this, kind of that scenario I was talking about here, of just the accumulation here of hail, an accumulation of hail. That's not, so maybe it's, don't know how big it is, but these are some very preliminary reports here. Don't want to get in too much detail on them right now because, just don't have a lot of it. But right there, around areas between Leesburg and Albany proper, we really may have had quite a bit of that hail fall here. Sometimes when you have a lot of hail fall, it can make things slick on the roads like an ice situation here. So this is kind of not what you want to see, and this is headed right toward State Road 91 there. State Road 91 in toward Lee County in Georgia. Again, this is something I do have. It seems like, I haven't, 100% confirmed the report, but I saw it on social media. There's preliminary information that we had just a bunch of hail there, fall, maybe not, it's huge in size, but just a lot of it, which can really make things slick there. which can really make things slick on the roads, depending on how that's accumulated. Okay, we need to pull up some traffic cameras. I know we had to jump in pretty quick with this here. Let's pull up some traffic cameras in that area. How about that? And we had the freezing fog we were dealing with last month in parts of South Georgia with that advisory that is in play. And now let's pull up some traffic cameras here. Let's see if we can get an idea, a visual on what's happened. I know we're kind of moving past the area with the best cameras, but let's see if this will kind of show us what may have happened. It's still wet. I don't necessarily see anything on the side of the road here that's really apparent. That could be pond in the water. Maybe that is something. On the far left side, it's really hard to say because on this angle, but I'll go ahead and pull it up for you guys. New warning now for Worth and Turner. Inch and a quarter size there on 60-mile-an-hour winds till 5:30. See that new box toward the east here now, folks. So that's something to be very mindful of as this is progressing here into the South Georgia community. So looking at that, there may be some, it could just be the water ponding, or it might be accumulated hail on that left side of the screen. I'm not 100% sure here. So again, this is Glendale Street, Forester Drive area there as we're looking into Worth Lee County. Just gotta be very careful here. US 19/State Road 3 at State Road 133. As we're trying to give you more, indicators there, more ways to describe what we're looking at here. So, just trying to keep you guys informed. Let's jump back on over here to the Doppler. Just trying to see here what we might be dealing with because the angles were a little bit, the radar not right at it, so it's not 100% sure to, where to see where things are co-located, but just trying to keep you up to date. Again, we're live on the air right now on the different platforms. Some considerable damage is possible, but just a lot of hail accumulation in general seems like the bigger concern here from very preliminary information. Very preliminary. As we're live right now in the air, the storm really strengthened on us here as it moved into a more populated area there in Lee County. Again, severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Dougherty and Lee till 5:15, Turner and Worth until 5:30. So again, a nasty situation here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking them into some of our South Georgia communities. So again, this is stuff that we're having to deal with here in our northwestern zones. Let me go ahead and switch over just to remind you guys what we cover here, our 62 counties. And right now the warning action is for parts of Dougherty and Lee and then Turner and Worth. So our northwestern zones in general here with this potential. Again, we have a nasty, nasty severe thunderstorm, maybe capable of producing considerable damage. Really in Lee County is what we're talking. Lee County, Georgia here. Right when we came on the air is when they upgraded this to a considerable warning. More damaging potential than normal with the hail size, but it could also just be the, the level of which, how much hail is falling out of this, and it may not be as big as golf ball size. It could be more just a bunch of quarters here where it's just everywhere, everywhere. We got to be very mindful of that. That can make it slick on the roads here and the like. So, again, we're pulling different radars in. The Robbins radar is the closest, so we're zooming back in, at least for this warning to the east, it looks like, as I kind of told our system, which, and asked it really based on clicking on warnings with, radar to pick here. You see Coffee County, we have a significant weather advisory over there. A little bit of weak rotation in that Irwin County zone. Let's pull up the other radar here. Not as apparent on that. Again, that separate is there, but it's not overwhelming. A little bit of that on that northern side, but that's more of a hail indicator, I would say, like what we've been doing with that rotation northern fringe. That's more of a supercellular structure you would see with a hailstorm. That's what it seems like we have a hailstorm here in Lee County, Georgia right now. Do we have any MPing reports? Let me just see, check my other source. I don't see any still on my other source here. I'm just trying to give you guys the very latest. Trying to keep you guys informed. Now again, areas like Aspirin there as well as Sycamore, you guys could be in the path of this. So be very mindful of the scenario that we are dealing with. Of course, Dole's in between that though. You know, as we're kind of tracking this, let's kind of we'll zoom in really tight. Yeah, Dole's. Looks like Coverdale, Sycamore, over toward the Aspirin area as well could all be in the path of this. So you have to be very mindful of what we're dealing with here this afternoon. You see southern parts of Irwin County. Watching some of that, you know, maybe weak rotation, but it's not really that apparent in Tallahassee. They're getting it pretty nasty with the accent right now. Nothing severe though, but some heavy downpours. We need the rain. I mean, we were on earlier talking about that at the end of the cover. We need the rain. That's, you know, if we don't get the damaging weather, you know, that's really what we, you know, it's best case scenario if you can get this rain without damaging weather. We had kind of escaped that until just the last maybe few minutes. I'm hoping maybe we're going to end up not having this as damaging, but just, you know, impactful weather instead with the hail. If we got as big as the warning was for, the 1.75 inches, that starts to really cause damage. But if it's more like an inch, that can lead to accidents on the road and cause damage that way. But it's a little bit different type of situation here, the slickness here with the overall situation. We could have some issues in terms of that. So you have to be very mindful of that there as well. But, you know, the oils with the rain mixing with that, but in hail, if you get enough hail to accumulate, that can be an issue. So again, live on the air here this afternoon, trying to give you guys the very latest, trying to keep you guys safe. I'm just trying to go through everything. It's about keeping you, your friends, and your family informed here with this pertinent weather matter. Again, we're here on the air right now. I'm just trying to go through all the different sources. It's very important to do that here with this type of scenario in play. Still with you here, just trying to look at everything. I'm just trying to be very aware of the situation. We thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching, you know, on Facebook there, Casey Cloud WX, Facebook Cloud Weather, Twitter /X at Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather, Twitch Cloud Weather, cloudweather.com. I appreciate you guys tuning in, trusting me. We do have some pretty inclement weather right now. Indoor parts of Lee County in Georgia, moving into parts of Worth County, also Turner County. Under the newest warning that goes out until 5:30. So again, this, you know, is weather that really ramped back up on us. We had an alert earlier for Early County, but this really ramped up into something that was looking, you know, impressive enough to get a considerable tag from the National Weather Service there in Tallahassee. Still has that golf ball size hail, still, you know, based on the warning, possible right around State Road 91, Georgia 91, moving into Worth County there over the next little bit. So again, you have to be paying attention here. It's not as bad as it was, according to the algorithms and the Doppler, albeit we're pretty far away from them, you know, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things with the storms. But again, we're just trying to keep you guys up to date here. Trying to keep you guys informed. Again, that's kind of the hail path that we just had here. These oranges, this type of orange where I put the red square, that's about inside hail. But when you start getting to the darker oranges, that's up to 1.75 inches in diameter, and or it could be a bigger, you know, magnitude of hail that's smaller. Our system will estimate it there in that it's bigger, but it could just be seeing an enhancement of smaller hailstones too. That's not impossible here in this type of situation. We've seen it before. And now out here we're seeing, as I go to the live mode, not the path mode, this type of hail here, it's up to about 0.94 inches. Okay, I just went back up. Our latest scan just came in up to 1.14 inches in diameter now on this as we're moving out of Lee and into Worth. Now, when you get to 1.75, something's happening. Sometimes at 1.14, well, maybe we're not as bad shape, but at 1.75, we're in worse shape here. As we're talking here, we're in a more precarious spot here meteorologically, and it's more likely that something's happening, whether there's just a bunch of hail or we're seeing a scenario here where we just have, bigger hail falling that's causing more damage. Now, power outage numbers might not really tell a story too much, but I'm going to look at them here. Just maybe we had some more wind in there than what I'm thinking. I'll look at our Georgia outages, and so far, according to PowerOutage.us, the worst is in Cook County there. Cook County with 124 customers in the dark there. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things, we're just continuing to give you guys the latest on this. And you can kind of see here what we're dealing with. You can see some of this lightning. You can see some of this lightning here. That's something you have to deal with too whenever thunder roars go indoors. We have some that are on Tallahassee right now. And, there's that FSU game. Most people probably aren't leaving. It's a tied game, I believe it is, at halftime. FSU and Duke on CBS. And, not going to be necessarily leaving that, but anybody that is outside or going outside trying to go outside at halftime, you shouldn't be doing that right now on Tallahassee, I would say. I would advise against that with thunderstorm action moving through with some electrical energy in that. We haven't had that in a while. Just whenever thunder roars, go indoors. So if that was, that basketball game, if it wasn't basketball, we were talking about football, well, there'd be a delay, but that lightning in that radius there. In fact, I'll tell you how close it is to the football stadium. I know they're a little apart, not that far apart, football and basketball, but the closest lightning recording FSU weather stem right now, as I go ahead and click on the information, looks like we have it. Oh, wow, that's really close. 0.12 miles east southeast, which, goodness, that's right there near the basketball arena. So hopefully nobody's been outside in that area. That's very, very, that's not what you want to see, really. That's right there at basketball, pretty much right there on campus to have it that close to the lightning, according to the system there, according to FSU Weather Stem. I mean, it was that, let's see here, was that cloud? It was cloud to cloud according to the system, a lot of these, though. So that's the good news here. I mean, can't 100% guarantee that, I don't guess, but what it's showing is cloud to cloud, but it's still not fun to hear that right there. Definitely not, what you want to hear. As we give you guys the latest, not severe weather, but tells you that things can be nasty for sure. As we give you guys the very latest. For what it's worth, if you're watching the telecast right now, and me at the same time, the FSU basketball game, they're showing the Landis Creek area, but that's recorded, obviously. They might have recorded that really recent since they haven't had a game on CBS at home in a long time, but it is not that ideal weather right now, so don't go outside. But I'll see what it really looks like right now here toward Gaines Street and Railroad Avenue. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking them, I don't have the sound of Brad Nessler, the legendary announcer, might have been talking about, how it is not as ideal as it looks in that picture because of the bad weather, of course. It's a great campus. I love FSU. I graduated from there. I'm just saying, in terms of the weather, this is what it looks like. It's not what you want to see here. No, not what you want to see toward Gaines Street and Railroad Avenue right now with these nasty conditions. I saw a flash of lightning a moment ago on this as well. So, again, just, not fun conditions right now. And we could have some of the inclement weather as people are going home. So, got to be very mindful of that. Got to be vigilant. Got to be careful. I know you can use all those different adjectives there for sure. But, have to just kind of wait and see. I know this is a little off topic. I don't know if there's even, obviously there's rules against this, about storming the court, college basketball. But if that were to happen, if you did pull the upset and they did have, enough fans there in terms of folks that wanted to do that, then honestly, you got to watch out because if people's shoes are wet, now some folks may have been in long enough, but if anybody's shoes are wet, that can make it, make things slick for that too. That's a different, thought we don't generally like to deal with around here. I know we had to field storming in football though in the wet conditions, but it's a little bit different with a court. But FSU, it's gonna be hard to pull that upset, but they're tied right now. So anything could happen as we look out toward the Tallahassee area. As you see out there toward Leon County, all this heavy rain there. State Road 61 and the like. More rain here moving on in. We'll go ahead and loop this. It'd be nice if some of this got out of there before the end of this game. And maybe some of it will for a window after this is over. It's possible. It could be kind of on the back end of that. About the time the game ends, we'll see. That'd be some good news here. I know the storms in Georgia were tracking at 20 to the east. And 25 on the other box. So let's see how far we are with the end of this. This is more like 40 to 45 miles, but we'll see here as we look in terms of the convection. Just trying to give you guys the very latest here. Just looking at using, it looked like it's moving a little bit faster, some of this stuff. Some different areas when you have this stuff out on the edge like that, sometimes the movement is going to vary, as you'll see here. Because that's what I was talking about earlier, that shifting of the wind. This is why we have this problem, honestly. It's right on the boundary. Because down to the south, we're not on the boundary. Up here, we have the switching of the winds. You see the winds there around Americus and Cordell. The winds are literally, we're getting, cool air trying to come in. Winds are coming from the north. But as you look around Albany there, we have winds coming from the southwest. And that's why we have this area here of enhancement meteorologically, and that's why we're not getting enough of the enhancement and the perimeters all organized together to get tornadoes necessarily, but we're getting enough of it to get supercellular structures that are producing hail. That's why it happened here this afternoon. We have some of that energy. We have some of these parameters here in the vicinity as well, as we look at some different things. So that's what's going on here. That is what's going on here right now as we're looking at things and as we're tracking them here, as I'm looking at some of our different information here. We have that boundary, the surface analysis. We're kind of talking about a stationary front here. It has moved some. I mean, you can kind of, as we're looking at things here, sometimes the different boundaries here, when we have different things going on, we can obviously have a low pressure involved and just, it's not what you want to see here, obviously. Granted, we don't have everything. This is not an outbreak. This is an area, though, of a corridor where we have a little bit more enhancement going on. A little bit more enhancement going on meteorologically. Sometimes when things hit these boundaries just right, you have something like this, a hail swath, so up here. Okay, so that's not what you want to deal with. But this got hail report of P-size around Thomasville at 457. Slip down there, not near as impressive, but still a little bit of that potential possibly right there in Thomas County. That's not going to cause damage, but still not what you want to see there. A little bit of lightning too. Make sure you're inside. Probably want to stay away from windows for just a little bit around Thomasville. Not severe there. Lightning more impressive around Tallahassee right now in Leon County. I know, not something that would definitely knock a telecast off, but they're still able to broadcast on CBS right now, which is very good news. The place isn't going to do much, haven't done much in a while in basketball. Have lightning around. It's not a certainty. You can stay on the air sometimes, just depending on inclement weather, but they're on there with the FSU down by 3 right now in the second half. But as we look up toward the north, this is where we had the more impressive hail there. This is the more impressive hail, potential is weakened some though. Dougherty and Lee until 5:15 are doing 1.25 inches on the hail right now on this warning. I think we've had, it's not seeing that enhancement as it once had here, which is what we want to deal with. That's good. It's still showing some nastiness, but we're not quite, maybe it's not completely aligned on the boundary like it was here. You can see here on the Doppler moving into Worth County. You can see what we're dealing with there. It's showing more like inch or a little less hail moving to areas around Doles right now. So that's the thing. When you have the boundary, you can get some of that upscale growth and the like here, and you can have issues like what we had further off toward the West Indies can suddenly evolve. If you have more rotational parameters, you can get a tornado out of that. Here, we didn't have all that. We had the supercellular type of indicators come into play here, and instead we had something else happen, and that's, supercell produced some hail here. Some pretty nasty hail, it would seem. I'm gonna stop this here. I know we're kind of switching sources. We had that box pop up, and let's see if we can get ZDR from a little while ago. Yeah, we had a lot of, because you can't see it at first. Maybe got some in there, but you see some of those red, but then you see some of this upscale growth right there on the south side of Leesburg. You had the storm growing vertically there, and that lends itself to strengthening, and then in this case, maybe more hail production. So again, hail, that issue coming into fruition there, and towards some of these different areas here. So not what you want to see there in South Georgia this afternoon. As we started to get to the evening, we're getting to sunset soon. I know if you're around Stark, you're wondering how much maybe rain we got today here so far. We've had the leading edge move through, so some of this light to moderate rain around. Well, on my rain gauge here east of Stark, again, we haven't had any severe weather in Bradford County. Haven't had any warnings, anything like that. But you see the sky. We've had 0.76 inches on that rain gauge, so 3/4 of an inch of rain here. So that's a pretty good bit. Here east of Stark on my rain gauge. That's what we want to see. We need more rain, and that's helpful, when we get that enhancement of that precip. So again, trying to keep you up to date here. By the way, FSU just took that lead again in the basketball game. I have another monitor here. Alex Dean in there inside trying to make some plays, and then they got the ball back out for a big shot, but going back and forth there. 0.32 inches on the Bradford County Sheriff's Office weather stem station as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things there in toward Bradford County. But again, with the rain, so there's some variation here. And in fact, you should be able to see this on our storm total product. You can, to some degree here. And in fact, our other mode may show up better. Let me see. It kind of shows the variation. There may be a little bit of radar displacement with this, but we're kind of, they definitely had to word the sheriff's office maybe a little bit on the edge there, the eastern side. Maybe, we kind of got into a little bit more. So with this, because some of this estimated information, so 0.94 inches in parts of Stark with the rain. Some of these darker greens are more like a ½ inch, give or take. So that variation, radar's not going to be perfect either with it. But as we continue to give you the latest, look at out toward Liberty County. 2.5 inches of rain today. That's what we want to see, obviously. Again, let me go ahead and pull up some model guidance. It's not been perfect here. That's some stuff further back. Well, real quick, let me just look at that. Some of that's a little bit more displaced right now further back. That northern edge, I was talking about that boundary here, and that's what triggered that action further in Georgia. This is our model here as we progress it. 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock here. We'll see if some of that stuff strengthens like it's so in north central Florida. A lot to it. So in Gilchrist and Marion, maybe it starts to weaken some more by like 8 or 9 o'clock. So we shall see as we watch things with the Doppler. You see it clearing out later on. But we go ahead and zoom back in here into Georgia. We have these warnings here still in play. It's become more linear, I think. But I'm talking about in Georgia. We do have an advisory now for that Leon storm. It's just showing more lightning than I would like to see right there in the metro like that. You don't want any, but get that much there clustered. It was showing some type of strengthening there, and we now have an advisory. A little bit of wind enhancement there right in eastern Leon, southeastern Leon County there. 50-mile-an-hour winds, about 1/4 of an inch in diameter hail there. It's, something we're watching. Peace-size hail around Woodville-ish area, but maybe the worst of that, maybe just to the north of Woodville, really there in Leon County. as you look in there. You know, maybe a little less populated. I mean, a lot of these areas around Tallahassee aren't, but that's a little more, you know, sparsely populated out that way. So, Thomas County have an advisory, had hail up to 1/4 of an inch in diameter reported on the MPAIN system. Let me see if we have anything in Georgia's areas around Lee and Dougherty counties on the MPAIN. I don't see it, but, you know, we had some issues with hail up there, certainly, based on what we've seen on our Doppler perspectives. You know, we had that considerable tag earlier on. Okay, they're expiring in Dougherty and Lee County. This definitely looks weaker now, which is some great news. We want the trend to continue weaker here on all this up toward the north. Again, I appreciate everybody watching, like Top Cat Ian there on YouTube and the like. Just trying to keep you guys up to date. But this is, you know, we have the one warning for turn north until 5:30. This angle shows some of this. But if the trends continue, I think we're going to wrap it pretty soon because this is really weakened. It's more linear now. It doesn't have that supercellular look to it that it had earlier on. And I'm going to load all these frames in the best I can here to recent data to try to keep you guys informed here. I'm just kind of looping this around. You saw how this kind of really evolved. I know it skipped some frames because we were switching radars, so it didn't just pop up out of nowhere, but because we were switching radar sites, and then that's 418. So it's starting to strengthen some then, but no warning at that point. And you saw we started to get some indicators, but then that's when we got the warning there. And then we saw some of that black, which indicates even more hail concern on the Doppler perspective. So again, that was crossing right over US 19 there about 4:35. And that, I'm sure, produced some pretty noteworthy hail in that area with that type of signature. But we've lost that now. We're back to the red and a little bit of purple. Not purples and black, which black, you know, again, it was right on the boundary here. Got that upscale growth here in North Lee County, which is problematic, obviously. You saw, I mean, right there. I mean, this is, let me go ahead and take off the radar. We have homes in here, quite a few, you know, folks live out in this vicinity. As we're looking in toward the sun, I mean, there are some rural zones too. You see a lot of trees, but these are some homes in here. That's a neighborhood. And yeah, you see how that was looking there. We probably had at least some minor hail damage, just depending on, you know, how this evolved. If you have any reports, let me know. But, you know, not, you know, just completely an urban area here, but there are some homes in here. And then this is what the radar looked like at 4:37. That's indicative of some nasty hail. And this is going to probably go way, if it even load on here. I'm going to try to load the vertically integrated liquid from that time. It's probably, yeah, it's going to go, it always kind of, I mean, it wasn't overestimated necessarily here because it's so nasty, but, you know, that's what it was showing us earlier on there with this. We had, this is the different modes, so sometimes, and you see that that's even weakened some. We did have thunderstorm wind damage in Houston County, Alabama earlier on around Cottonwood at 2:45. A tree knocked down a power line. That report just coming in from the 911 call center. And then as we look here, though, at this storm here and/or the Turner-Worth County area, again, it's weakened. We now have a warning for hail under an inch, which wouldn't by itself keep the warning in play. The warning's now technically in play because of the wind. They're saying it could still be to 60 moving into Doles there. Honestly, kind of right on the edge of this here. Right on the edge of maybe needing that, but with what we saw earlier on and how quickly it had that upscale growth that strengthened, and they're trying to err on the side of caution there, the Weather Service. So, again, be careful in this area. It's pretty, you know, rural for most of this, but this warning does continue at 5:30 for portions of Turner and Worth. Watch this stuff toward Thomas and Brooks as well. Nothing overly impressive. Some wind maybe to 40 or so in there at points though. And then we have maybe winds to about 50 in parts of Leon County right now as we're looking at things and as we're tracking it. You can see this is not really showing 50, but it is pretty low to the radar, you know, to the ground based on the radar distance. So, I mean, it's possible that could be happening there in southeastern Leon County. So, again, definitely just trying to give you guys the very latest here on what's going on and what we're tracking here with the overall meteorological storyline. So, again, just have to be very cognizant of what we're dealing with here as we're giving you guys the very latest. Just making sure right at the radar if we had any type of crazy tornado, weak tornado touchdown, you'll be able to see it on here. We're not seeing that, luckily. That's not really expected at this point, but it's technically not zero. Not seeing that there. As I continue to give you guys the very latest, I'm checking some things here in the Weather Center. I know some folks are watching the NFL. I've been watching that FSU basketball game, but some people are watching Tampa and Carolina, a huge game for playoff implications. They're in driving. It looks like I'll pull the radar up to make sure. I hadn't checked that. I was just going to check the game first to see if it's a driving downpour. Maybe not according to radar, but it looks like it on TV from the one angle over there on ABC and ESPN right now. Tampa up 10-0 on Carolina, early second quarter in that NFL game. Huge game there. It's not fun weather though, whether it's heavy or moderate rain. It doesn't look good on TV, but no severe weather there, no lightning showing up in that immediate vicinity. So that's good. Not good for Tampa. Carolina this quarter touchdown there to make it 10-6 early in that second quarter, but there is some rain in that area there for sure that's having an impact, you would think, on that game. Yeah, I mean, that looks more impressive even than at Raymond James Stadium than what I see on the other mode, but sometimes the cameras turn angles can make it look a lot worse than it is, or other angles may make it not as bad as it actually is. It's just a different thing. Sometimes when it's dark, the lights, if you look into the lights without much training, it makes it look more impressive than it is, but not dark yet. But my point is, different angles can influence that. So I know former FSU kicker Ryan Fitzgerald up there to kick the extra point for Carolina right now. He got that. And it is 10-7 there in that second quarter. But we'll keep our eyes on that. Weather is impacting that literally because it's outdoors. People going home from the FSU game will have that too in our area though, as we look back toward the north. So again, we have this nasty area here, not severe, but it's east of Tallahassee. We're watching some moderate to heavy rain here on the radar, not just, it looks, I mean, if I can't see a TV, of course, but if you're watching ABC there, and you just compare that to what we're seeing on the radar with that, this is, something that's pretty heavy with that rainfall there toward the Big Bend region. Again, we're watching things up in Turner and Worth County as well. Robbins View kind of gives you a little more unobstructed view. And you see some moderate rain in there. Some of those pinks and, purples, however you want to describe that in there. Let's look a little bit stronger from that mode. Let's just go back a little. So you see how we had that black area, that it looked like a kidney bean type save too. It's weakened some. Let it scan a little bit more up there. The warnings for wind, it looks like hail to about 3/4 of an inch still, but I don't know about the wind to 60 on that right now, but we got to be careful. I would lean them, against them extending this warning, past the time of expiration here, which would be good news for us. But you just never know as we look back here toward like north central Florida. Let me go ahead and see if we have any new reports for Georgia with the hail. I'm not seeing anything on the one source. Let me go ahead and I'm checking some more information. Bear with me here. Just bear with me. Okay, wow. Okay. Well, this is something. This just came in here, so I'm going to pop it up on my other source. You'll see it on our source in a second, too. But we just got a hail report in it. Kind of verifies, it makes it sound even worse than, what we were talking about earlier. I don't know. Have that potential for those roads to not be ideal, and then this kind of backs that up. Let me make sure I can put this up on the screen here. I'll just put it up as a full. Let me do that. This is going to be from the IM bot there, if you know what I'm talking about, the Iowa Environmental Mesonet source, social media, but it came from another source here too just now, but I just want to pull this up full to kind of tell you, I don't normally do this, but this is an impressive report, one of the more impressive reports, probably the most that we're going to get here today. So let me get this full screen here, just a one-man band, but this is something. In Lee County, Georgia here. I'm going to pull up our other source, our web source. And here you go. So 2 miles east southeast of the community of Forester there in Lee County, Georgia. Broadcast media reporting hail to 2 inches in diameter, and it was just covering the ground there on Lovers Lane in Lee County, Georgia. Again, Lovers Lane there in Lee County, Georgia. We had hail reported covering the ground, and it was as big as some of the stones, at least. Maybe not all of them, but some of them were as big as 2 inches in diameter there. That is not what you want to see. And we've been on the air with you guys for a little while talking about this concern. And this is, something that we've been tracking. We got on the air there, I believe, just right before 4:37, because this got issued at 4:28 or so. And we jumped in as quick as we could. Yeah, we were on when they upgraded to considerable. So we were on the air right before this happened, it would seem there, in toward that area. It's happened very rapidly, that rapid intensification, that rapid upscale growth. Again, a report there of 2-inch hail there. In toward the area of Lovers Lane in Lee County, Georgia, 2 miles east-southeast of the community of Forester. So, again, not what you want to deal with here. That's very big hail. That can cause damage here. And you have some of that wind in there. You have just lots of it. So, I would think, I haven't seen the picture that prompted this, directly, but I have a feeling here, as I look at this here, that a lot of it just probably wouldn't be 2 inches. A lot of it's smaller. I'm just knowing from history inside, maybe even less in some cases. But just a messy situation. We had that, that ice, snow, really snow for this part of our area, storm system last January, and maybe somewhat reminiscent of that in a few areas. Granted, this is some ways more dangerous because it's not snow. This is not fun. This is hail. There's not really anything fun about this. Indoor, especially to get to 2 inches in diameter. I can really make things click when it happens so suddenly like this in a pretty isolated zone. That corridor we were talking about here, we were talking about on the air with you. So let me switch back on over to a bunch of different sources up here. They're going to go ahead and expire that warning in Georgia, it looks like. You see that LSR, that local storm report, now plotted on here. And we'll go ahead and kind of load the recent frames in. And we'll show you here, right in there, that's kind of a little south of where I would think it'd be a little bit further north. I'm surprised it's showing that there on the LSR that far south. But the point being, right on 437, 439, somewhere around there, is when we had this hail come on through inward parts of Lee County there in Georgia. On the Doppler perspective, it was definitely, an issue for them. This is the one angle from Fort Rucker / Fort Nova Seal. So, again, not what you want to deal with, obviously, or in toward South Georgia with that hail, with that egg-sized hail is what we're calling it, 2 inches in diameter. So, again, just trying to keep you guys up to date. This is west at that point of I-75. The current scan has some weakening. We have some more action moving back into Dougherty there, west side of town. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but again, just trying to give you guys the very latest. Let me see that hail track the last hour, too. Going between all our different modes here. Again, I'm not 100% sure the coordinates on the LSR. The radar displaces things, too, though. So, it could be a mix of both in some ways. But this is where our system says we consider this for, like, tornado paths and rotations sometimes. Well, this is a hail path. The hail swath according to our system there. And this orange is indicating hail of over 1 inch. And right in here was 1.75 inches. Now, it says it was a report a little south. I don't know. Again, the displacement, I have a feeling that both of them might be displaced a little bit. And it could be, maybe somewhere closer to here where we had the worst of it. I'm not sure. But, just right in there in that vicinity. But not fun weather conditions for sure. But again, that warning for now is being dropped as of 5:30. We would go to the end of this if it was a tornado warning. We've not had that today, but a very nasty supercellular scenario set up there in Lee County for hail production to cause hail to 2 inches and, to cover the ground, and up to 2 inches in some cases in diameter off of Lovers Lane in Lee County, Georgia. So we're going to keep watching things. We're going to keep tracking things. Things are looking a little bit better right now. That warning going to be expired out at 5:30 for parts of Turner and Worth. So at that point, you don't see it now, but technically it's still till 5:30. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it right now since it doesn't look like we're going to get any more warnings here in the immediate, in the immediate future. Doesn't mean we couldn't have some more later, though. as we start to lose instability later on, it may be a little tougher for that to happen. So maybe this will be the last time we have to be on with you today until, our formal update late Tuesday, but we shall see. So stay safe on the road. If you're like leaving an FSU game, and FSU now trails by 7, second half during basketball, be careful. Still slick on the road. Could have to have some lightning here and there and thunder roars. Go indoors, obviously. Be very mindful of that. And again, we'll be back on if conditions are warned, do warn it as conditions are warranted. So as we go ahead and see the temperature story, you can kind of see here some cooler conditions there in spots because of that rain cooled air. I know here east to start, we're down to 60 degrees even. We've had 8/10 of an inch of rain today. That's the most rain we've had in a day in a while, and we'll take it. We haven't had severe weather here, and we want that rain, though. That is good news, even though not good news in parts of Georgia with that severe, hail confirmed. But a lot of areas just getting that much needed rain. You don't get the lightning, you don't get, that electrical energy. That's helpful, too. So a lot going on. We're going to keep you up to date as warranted, if warranted. But for now, thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Again, we'll stream, more covered as needed. We'll pop back on if we need to more, but going to go ahead and end this stream right now. Thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. Stay safe out there.